Namaste, homies. This is Navanad. This is your friendly neighborhood budget pub stomper. I did a video. First I want to just apologize for the background noise. Not much I can do about that today. Want to get this video out while it's still Friday, while it's still the weekend. So I did a video deck tech on the new Niv Mizzet not long ago, and it really didn't go over that well. It didn't get a lot of views on it. If you were hoping to see that Niv Mizzet when you clicked onto this Niv Mizzet, finish watching this. Then in the description you can find my Niv Mizzet Visionary Deck list. But I think that I've got some pretty interesting things that I've figured out with this budget Niv Mizzet deck. So this is a sub $100 budget competitive build. It's $96.06 to be precise at moment of recording. So I want to talk a little bit about first just what the commander does. That's usually what we do is we talk about the commander, then I talk about the win lines, and then I go over some of the kind of what I would call more interesting things that maybe I'm uniquely bringing to the archetype. So Niv Mizzet is a blue, red, 5/5 dragon. It's a lot of mana, but the deck is obviously built to produce a lot of mana, a lot of pips, and it's not going to get you blown out, because if you cast this for 6 mana, no one's going to say, okay, counterspell, because the first line is, this spell can't be countered. It is a flying 5/5 dragon, legendary dragon wizard. It says whenever you draw a card, Niv Mizzet deals 1 damage to any target, and whenever a player casts an instant or sorcery spell, you draw a card. So that's you or your opponent. So if you can get this out, even if you're not just using the commander as a win condition, if it's a value engine, it's a very good value engine. I just played a true CDH game last night. I was playing Malcolm Kedis, and I got my Niv Mizzet in play. No curiosity effect, just had Niv Mizzet in play, and it allowed me to win a game where we were on like turn 6 or something, and there was a lot of attempts to stop my combo. I don't remember. It was a Reckless Fireweaver combo, I believe. But I was able to resolve that with like a 12 spell deep stack. It was just counter, and then I'm drawing cards and countering and pinging this thing and hitting face over there. So the commander does a lot of work as a value engine, but really the main draw in a competitive sense is the fact that it has 1-card combos with 3 separate cards in the deck. So the 1-card combos are going to be this Tandem Lookout, or Curiosity, or Ophidian Eye. So all of these basically read the same. Like the Curiosity effects is what I call them. I think that's what they're usually called. It just says whenever enchanted creature deals damage to an opponent, you may draw a card. If you've watched the channel before, you may be familiar with this idea, but one of the things you're looking for when you're looking for combos is for 2 cards to kind of have the opposite text of each other. Niv Mizzet says whenever you draw a card, you deal a damage. Whenever you draw a card, it deals a damage to any target. Whenever you draw a card, it deals a damage. Right, okay, and then Curiosity says whenever you deal a damage, you draw a card. So whenever the creature deals a damage, you draw a card. Whenever you draw a card, you deal a damage. Whenever you deal a damage, you draw a card. Same with Ophidian Eye. Same with Tandem Lookout. It's a creature that soul bonds with the Niv Mizzet, but they're all effectively going to do the same thing. You put them into play with your Niv Mizzet, and you're going to draw cards until your heart's content, pinging for each card that you draw. Now you can run into a little bit of an issue where you're going to deck yourself before you have the opportunity to literally kill every player. It's not really an issue. You don't need to play like a hard outlet. If you kill 2 of your opponents and sculpt a perfect 7-card hand and go 1v1 with, there's just no way you're going to lose that game. But I did include a hard outlet just in case, and also because it's got some synergy with other pieces of the deck. So the hard outlet, so let's say we get our Niv Mizzet and our Curiosity combo going, and we draw 90 cards. We kill 1 player, maybe we almost kill another. Then we cast our Glinthorn Buccaneer. We go to end step, and then when we go to our end step and we discard cards, Glinthorn Buccaneer says whenever you discard a card, it deals 1 damage to each opponent. So that will finish the job if you feel like you need a hard outlet. And there's rituals that will allow you to, almost always, if you can draw this many cards, you're going to be able to cast your Glinthorn Buccaneer. even in a budget deck. Okay, so the main focus then is going to be controlling the game long enough to get your Niv Mizzet in play and then winning. And again, you can use the Niv Mizzet as sort of a value engine, and/or you can just play the deck as a control deck and use the Niv Mizzet as just your final punch to the throat, your knockout, your KO, your win condition. So that means you don't have to play win conditions necessarily in the main deck, which allows you to play a bunch of interaction. And we've really focused in on free and very cheap interaction, because a lot of times when you do cast your Niv Mizzet, even though it can't be countered, you're still going to want to have mana up a lot of the time to protect it, or to stop the win while you're waiting to untap, or if it's not mana up, then free interaction. We had the shoal in here. I can't remember the name. It just got picked up by modern players, so it went to like $8 or something from like 90 cents overnight. Disrupting shoal. But we still have some free interaction. We have foil, and if you're sitting there with a full grip, foil will be just about as good as force of will for you. And we've got daze, which don't sleep on daze. It's better than you might think. And misdirection. And then we've got some other just kind of free or semi-free interaction like mind collapse and snap. So let's look at the ways that we're going to get to the requisite mana. There's the obvious ways. Arcane Signet, Coalition Relic, these 3 mana ones that'll give you 2 mana when you actually need the 2 mana. They're a lot better than you might think. Jeweled Amulet, even though it's gone up to $7, I still think it's good enough to warrant the include here. Lotus Bloom, I've got tricks with Lotus Bloom, but even just played straight up, if you play this on turn 1 and it's got Suspend 3, you play it for 0 mana, and then on your turn 3 it's a Black Lotus. So Pentad Prism, this is 2 mana, and it's going to produce 2 mana when you need it to. So all of these are going to allow you to ramp ahead a little bit further than other rocks would. Heart of Ramos, when you're ready to cast your Niv Mizzet, you can sacrifice it. That's going to get you 2 mana. Then we're playing some other artifacts like Cursed Totem. So CDH is full of dorks, but I don't just mean the players. I mean like mana dorks, and Cursed Totem shuts them off. And especially budget CDH is full of dorks, and commanders like Kinnan, which this shuts off the activated abilities of all creatures, and a lot of commanders have really good activated abilities, and some of them, like Thrasios, really will not be prepared to win the game without being able to activate. Same with Kinnan to a degree. So we're playing a bunch of mana rocks. We need a bunch of mana. Another thing that I think people kind of sleep on, or don't really, maybe it's not the most intuitive thing, is that Niv Mizzet is an Isochron Scepter Dramatic Reversal outlet. So if you have Niv Mizzet in the command zone, you don't even need to be near enough mana to cast it. If you just have a couple of rocks in play, say you have a Soul Ring and a Coalition Rock, you have an Arcane Signet and a Soul Ring in play. Then if you have Isochron Scepter, you just need the Dramatic Reversal. Dramatic Reversal says untap all non-land permanents you control. It's an instant for 2. So if you cast Isochron Scepter and you imprint the Dramatic Reversal, then Isochron Scepter will allow you to pay 2, tap it to copy whatever card you imprinted on it. So you will untap all of your permanents, including the Isochron Scepter, and then tap them again. So that's going to allow you to go infinite mana, which is going to easily allow you to cast your Niv Mizzet. But then once your Niv Mizzet is in play, when you activate the Isochron Scepter, it does say on Isochron Scepter that you cast the spell. And because you're casting the spell, you do get the Niv Mizzet triggers, and so you can murder everybody with your not only infinite mana, but you can ping everybody infinitely and draw your deck. So infinite mana, draw your deck, that you can't really lose in that situation, especially when you murder probably 1 or 2 people outright straight away. And then, of course, you just find your Glinthorn, play it, go to discard, murder everybody else. Some ways that we've got in the deck to... So that's our 2 main win cons, is we're going to do Niv Mizzet with one of the Curiosity effects, or Dramatic Reversal Isochron Scepter. By the way, both of these cards are pretty good in the deck, even when you're not comboing with them, because you are playing a bunch of rocks. So being able to untap those rocks with Dramatic Reversal can give you the mana you need to cast your Niv Mizzet. It can work like a ritual effect. And then we're playing loads of counter spells and interaction, and we're playing ways to get through our deck, like Consider, Brainstorm, Ponder, Preordain, those sorts of effects, Windfall. And we've got a little bit of a combo here with our Wheels and Narset. So Narset, if you play your Narset and then you cast a wheel, you get to reload your hand, but everybody else can only draw one card. That's for the turn. So if for some reason they've already drawn a card and you wheel with Narset and play, they just go hellbent. They have no cards left in hand. Now, since you're going to be a control deck, you're playing a bunch of sweepers. We're playing Pyroclasm, Anger of the Gods, and Earthquake. I guess not a bunch, but enough. Rolling Earth. Yeah, we've got a good number of them here. We've got a bunch of these kind of Pyroclasm, Earthquake-like effects to wipe the board. But we are playing some creatures. So you'll have to, be kind of cautious about that. But we're far from a creature deck. We've got 10 creatures total, and they're mostly, really Simian Spirit Guide is more like a ritual, and Drift of Phantasms is actually a tutor. It can find our Tandem Lookout, for instance. And the other combo, I almost forgot about the other win line. So if you're somehow shut off from your Niv Mizzet, maybe it's been killed once or twice and you just can't get to it, you do also have Malcolm, which isn't a bad piece on its own, in this deck especially. Because you're able to just make treasures when you hit people with your Malcolm. So it's a nice little piece of mana production. It's evasive, so it works with your Facebreaker, which is kind of another version of the same thing. But also, if you pair the Malcolm with the Glinthorn, and you do have like Drift of Phantasms, for instance, can find either half of that A plus B, then you've got Malcolm plus Glinthorn equals win the game. So it's a commander agnostic win condition. Stormkiln, since you're playing just a ton of spells, instants, sorceries, this is going to make a bunch of treasures for you. It also works with the Dramatic Reversal Isochron Scepter thing. You'll make infinite treasures. Archmage Emeritus, you're a control deck. This is going to be a value engine, a very good and I think kind of slept on value engine. Wavebreak, Hippocamp, almost as good. It's a mana less. It only works on your opponent's turns and only once per turn. But that's I've seen it in actual CEDH decks, so I think it's a good include. But there's a couple little pieces of tech that I'm kind of particularly proud of here. Okay, so we talked a little bit about the Lotus Bloom, but I want to show you the trick with Lotus Bloom. So there's actually two versions of the Lotus Bloom trick: Goblin Engineer and Whir of Invention. There's other artifact tutors that'll do kind of the same thing, but we're just going to talk about Whir of Invention. So if you cast your Whir of Invention, X equals 0, so you just pay 3 blue mana, then you can grab your, and this is an instant, so at the end of turn 3, you can tap 3 mana, cast Whir of Invention, find your Lotus Bloom and put it into play. Now it's just a black Lotus. You don't have to wait for it to come off because it didn't get cast from your hand. So you can kind of cheat the Lotus Bloom into play with Whir of Invention. And the same thing works with Goblin Engineer. You cast your Goblin Engineer on turn 2. On turn 3, if you want to do this, you can probably cast your Niv Mizzet. Now you don't have to, you can wait, and sometimes it's better to wait. But turn 2, Goblin Engineer, you grab your Lotus Bloom, you put it in the graveyard. Then on your next turn or whenever you feel like doing it, you can use the Goblin Engineer to sacrifice whatever, a treasure or something, to put the Lotus into play, and it's essentially a black Lotus for you at that point. So I think those are pretty good little pieces of tech. Loaded up with counterspells, loaded up with removal. Our commander's big, so Bolt Bend, it does a lot of work. And the blue version of Bolt Bend, I can never remember what that's called. It's Stubborn Denial. So a lot of times just paying 1 mana to counter a target non-creature spell. If they can't pay 1, like Force Spike is often good enough. But if you control a creature with power 4 or greater, like Niv Mizzet, it's just 1 mana, counter target non-creature spell. We've got Dizzy Spell as another tutor that can find our Curiosity or some of our other effects. So we're a control deck. We're a pretty hard control deck. We're loaded with interaction. We've got value engines to help us stay afloat. We've got some alternate win conditions in the form of non-dead cards, which I think is pretty important. There's another line, like, I didn't just think Malcolm Glinthorn was a good enough combo to include on its own. It's just like Malcolm is good because it makes treasures and the deck needs a lot of mana. But it's also an evasive creature for your professional Facebreaker, which is going to help you to make some more mana. And the deck is obviously very hungry for mana. And if you pair these two together, obviously that wins the game. Also, yeah, you can use the Glinthorn Buccaneer as a hard outlet. So these all layer together. But also there's a trick you can pull with Glinthorn Buccaneer. So if you don't have your commander in play, if you have 8 cards in hand, you just have to be in a game state where you've got Glinthorn Buccaneer with any Curiosity effect and 8 cards in hand. Then when you go to your discards, so let's just say we've got Curiosity on the Glinthorn. We go to our end step, we've got 8 cards in hand. We go to discard, we discard a card, and Glinthorn says when you discard a card, it deals a damage to each opponent. The Curiosity is going to trigger and cause you to draw 3 more cards. Then it's going to kind of restart your discard phase, and then you're going to have 3 cards to discard, and that's going to ping everybody, and you're going to draw cards, and on and on and on until they're all dead. So this is another kind of A plus B combo. Requires a little more setup in that you do have to have a full grip +1 minimum, but not that hard to do in the deck. We've got ways to get there. There's also some stuff you can do with High Tide. It's a pretty good card. It's a pretty good little ritual, and sometimes you'll just use it as a ritual, and that'll ritual out your Niv Mizzet. But also you can use this in tandem with effects like Snap and Frantic Search. So like Frantic Search, it's good when you've got Niv Mizzet out. It's good when you're trying to get to the point where you can cast Niv Mizzet. But if you have cast your High Tide, so normally Frantic Search will go mana neutral. Cost 3 mana, you untap 3 lands. But if you've got High Tide, then it goes mana positive. So it's going to help you to create a boatload of mana, which is going to allow you to do all of the things you need to do a little bit faster than your opponents are likely to expect you to be able to do it. We're playing more lands than I normally play in competitive decks, even budget competitive decks. We've got 33. I wanted to have a good, healthy island count for the High Tide. Plus, we've just got some tap lands that are going to help us, again, kind of ramp into our Niv Mizzet, or like color fix for our Niv Mizzet a little bit more consistently than we otherwise would be able to. I actually like these depletion lands. I even play them in, I play one of them in my Malcolm Kedis full-powered CDH deck, but here we're playing the depletion land in blue and the sack land Dwarven Ruins in red. So you can sacrifice the Dwarven Ruins on the turn it's time to cast Niv Mizzet, and that'll get you where you need to be. Trying to think if there's anything else sneaky, convoluted, otherwise interesting to discuss. Let's take a look at some goldfish hands. Probably just gonna do a couple here. All right. Let's go to a second 7. Yeah, sure, whatever. We'll keep this. Draw for turn. We're going to play Spire Bluff Canal, pass turn. We're going to do this. Now in budget especially, these Anger of the God type effects are devastating. So on our turn 3, we might want to use this, or we may want to hold off. If we do want to hold off, I don't think there's any real good reason to sandbag interaction. We'd have to either probably decide to tutor for our Curiosity or for interaction, or to develop our Wave Break, and I think probably we don't want to develop the Wave Break. I think likely the thing to do here would be to Anger of the Gods and make sure that we send all of our opponents back to the Stone Age while we're looking to develop our plan. And this would probably very often be kind of the nail in the coffin. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 mana. So you could go ahead and cast Niv Mizzet here. I think a lot of times the play will be is to put your Cursed Totem out, count on that to buy you a couple extra turns. 1, 2, 5, yeah. So then we're gonna go ahead and transmute Dizzy Spell and get our Curiosity. And we'll go to our next turn. Ideally, we'd want to hold up mana, but let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Blue, 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 red, red, red. Cast the Niv Mizzet. We could put the Curiosity on if we want to here, and hold the table hostage. It's really hard for your opponents to win or remove your Niv Mizzet without casting any instants or sorceries, and as soon as somebody does cast an instant or sorcery, you're going to pop off and win the game. So we'll do maybe one more. Happens sometimes faster than you would expect, right? So let's keep this. Draw for turn. Spire Bluff Canal, sure. Soul Ring into Arcane Signet. Tap the Signet to land cycle our Ash Barrens and probably just find a island. That goes into our hand, and we're going to shuffle and go to our next turn. This is going to be, you know, really dependent on what's going on in the game. You could develop your draw engine. You could hold up interaction. You could use your earthquake. Really hard to say. I mean, it's gonna obviously just depend on what's happening. Probably most often we're gonna want to just hold up our counterspell, I would say. You know, if you've got, like, I don't know, you're playing against Selvala and Magda and Kinnan, then you're gonna earthquake and basically just cause everybody to lose the game on the spot. I mean, you could earthquake X = 2 and still hold up the counterspell. So maybe that's what we would do, and depending on the matchup. But that really could just be the winning play right there. That could damn near win you the game. Maybe we do this, and we've got 1, 2, 3, 4. I think here we're still just going to hold up interaction. We could develop our Archmage, but I think it's risky. It's going to depend on what's going on in the pod, of course. The other thing we could have done is just not played this, and then we could go 1, 2, 3, 4, and that would allow us to play the Archmage and hold up interaction. 2, 3, 4. Yeah, impossible to say outside of a real pod. But let's just say yeah, we'll just hold up the interaction. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. You could run it out or not. The nice thing about this deck, the way that I've got it built, is we're not completely reliant on Niv Mizzet. We do have Glinthorn. All we need to find is a tutor or Malcolm straight up, and we can win with that little combo. But if honestly, if people are going to take this thing out, you're going to draw some number of cards, right? You're going to probably draw cards anyway. So the next person, so in a 3 players take a turn. Let's just say we draw a card. Go to our next turn. Maybe we just get Staxy. Let's put a little Stax piece down, or maybe we'd want to develop our value engine. Okay, so between these two, we're in a really good spot here. This is a control deck. So we're gonna pass. Somebody tries to do something, and we have to counter it. We draw 2 cards off of that. Well, the thing that they try to do probably draws us a card, and then we draw 1 off our own Niv Mizzet, and then 1 off the Archmage. So 1, 2, 3. get 3 pings, take out some dorks, because Niv Mizzet has that other line of text where it deals damage. We go to our next turn, and I think we've pretty well got a vice grip on the game at this point. This doesn't appear to be a game we could reasonably lose. So this is just kind of how the deck plays. Wanted to keep the game or the video a little bit shorter today. So I think that is my Niv Mizzet Parun deck tech. Again, I'm going to link the new Niv Mizzet Visionary Deck tech in the description. I do some gold fishing in that as well. Probably looks a little bit more impressive, but I'm interested to see in the comments, please tell me which version of Niv Mizzet you think is the more powerful Niv Mizzet. I think that's it, guys. Word to your mothers. East side until I die. May all your this be that and all of that. Namaste, nerds.